It's a bit scratchy. The glasses are scratched. So now I'm ready. I hope you are as well. I'm Jenny from Tuftinglove.com, and today we're going to have a look at our rock carving machine and what you can do with it. So before we start, we have a quick overview on what we are covering in this tutorial. First, we have a look at the things that you might need with your rock carving machine, tools that might be helpful. Next, we're going to have a look at what you can do with the carving machine while your piece is still on the frame and you're in the tufting process. And then, of course, we're also having a look at what you can do while finishing, such as flattening the surfaces, or lowering even, like actually cutting it down, creating nice and crisp lines. All of that we're going to cover. So let's start with the tools that might be helpful. Of course, you're gonna need the rock carving machine itself. I also always have a pair of duckbill scissors that are coming to the shop soon. And probably my most beloved tool of the studio, my hand vacuum cleaner. All these will help you when carving and make sure you can work clean and also very detailed for when the carving machine is just a bit too big. So let's make some space and bring our small starter frame on the table and see what we can do on the frame. So as you've seen, I put this scrap rock that we have underneath because the nail tags of the frame would otherwise scratch the tabletop. So now we have this blob that I tufted for this tutorial, and we want to check what we can do while it's still on the frame. Remember, we haven't glued the back yet, so it's still like loose, the piles. You can still pull them out, but of course you can now already trim the sides of the blob or the shape you're creating, and make sure that the ones that you're tufting next to it are already having a crisper line and you don't have so much work when you're finishing the rock. It has this nice little rounded edge here, so when you're going in here you cannot actually go in and cut the tufting cloth. I mean, of course, if you really want to, you can cut the tufting cloth, but this is a really nice protection. So what I do when I carve while tufting, I really just go in and carve around the shape to make it a bit less fluffy on the edges and therefore have a nicer line. So now we have created this nice and crisp line. If you have some loose fluffs, you can of course go in with your scissors, but most of it is carved out nicely and it's much cleaner than the other side where it's all really fuzzy and fluffy still. Of course, you can also use it to flatten the surface down already, or like really cut it down and make it a lower pile height. We will have a look at that in a moment when we check what we can do while finishing, because the process is exactly the same. So we have seen now what we can do while we are tufting, while the piece is still on the frame. Now let's have a look what we can do during the finishing process. All these parts that I have here are in different states. but in the end it doesn't really matter when you do it, as long as it's glued and off the frame. You can start with it because it's more flexible than on the frame, and you can reach the spaces better. So let's start with flattening the surface. I would like to flatten this white surface because, as we all know, when we tuft the surface, it's not going to end up super even. There will always be some uneven fluffs because we are tufting with very soft materials, and you cannot achieve like this super uniform thing. So when I want to flatten the surface, I make sure it lies on a flat surface, and I simply go in like that and just push it down a bit, depending on if I only want to even it out or actually cutting it down. I adjust the pressure. So I turn it on and I simply go in like that. And you can see this has done a bit something, but not quite as much yet. So I will try and really bring it down at one point here now. So you can really go in and really dig in. Let me quickly clean it. If you're having big rocks, you want to use an actual shearing, leveling tool for evening out surfaces. But I think for rocks up to this size, you're completely fine. But as you can see, when you carve it down, you can actually achieve a leveled surface. Let me do the whole thing here. And we also want to make the round edges a bit more defined and not so fluffy. So we can simply go around it with the machine like this. Like you now created some kind of really like a 90 degrees angle. Can you actually see it? And we want to flatten that out or round it off a bit. So we go in with an angle to make it more like a round shaped ending of the rock. And if you now want to get rid of the fluffs down here, you can do it with the machine, even though I prefer going in around the edges with the scissors, because you simply have a bit more control over it. You can see here it's better than here with the fluffy ends. So I go around with the scissors because for me it's simply more comfortable. But that's maybe also up to you and your technique. I go in here again with the machine. And now we do have a much nicer ending, and it's much more defined than before. On this rock, the carving is basically done, and all the surfaces have been tufted in exactly the same pile height, except for the little black ones. That's a loop pile with the AK2. But everything else has been tufted on the highest pile height with the AK1, and I then sheared it down, and you can see there's quite a difference in levels here. So I just sheared down all the orange part with the rock carving machine. As you can also see, I defined the lines here all the way. And we do that again with this one. I already pre-did some of this here. And what I do is simply I go in with the machine on an angle. So I create like this V-shaped thing. I simply go in like that and take out the parts. So when you want to create like crisp lines, it's important that when you tuft, you leave some space between the lines of the two shapes. So don't tuft right next to each other. If you leave a tiny bit of a gap, can you see that? There, you can see some Tuftinglove here. It makes it so much easier to get in with the carving machine as well with the scissors. So we get in into that gap and you can really carve it out. And now we've done one side, we're going to do the same with the other side, the other surface. And we clean it out. And now you can see it's a super crisp line that we created, only with like going twice the same line in different angles. And now, of course, we didn't flatten these two surfaces. So maybe you want to round off this or really make it a V-shaped or really more like a rounded thing. So you can now think about how you want to have the transition between that crisp line and the surface. So maybe you want to go in at a lower angle and just make it a rounded thing. And the other side could really be just straight, so we would go in again very straight. And here again, if you have like single fluffs, single threads of yarn that are peeking out, it's super easy to just go and snip it with the scissors, especially because you can super easily fold it that way and get in with the scissors like that for the details and where the lines meet each other. So now we covered already how to flatten the surface and how to make crisp lines. But of course, you can also have three-dimensional work within a one-colored area. Let's have a look at that on this rug. So this is just a piece of scrap yarn rug. I just tufted all the scraps that we have, like little bits on cones that were left. And we use this rug in workshops. So workshop participants can try out the rug carving machine and figuring out how much pressure they need. And I really recommend you do that as well. I'm sure you have some bits left on your frame where you tested some things. Just fill a bit of that space up, glue it as well, so you have a piece where you can test out the machine before going in on your actual artwork or rug. So here we just have someone just carved out. Can you see it? Here someone just carved out a square in the middle of this shape. So you can actually, of course, go in and just three-dimensionally shape an area or a part of the surface. And that's really up to you and trying things out and getting the handling of the machine, right? So I think it's really a strong learning curve on this one, and you can do very quick a lot with it, but you can always improve on carving out super three-dimensional things. And also it needs a creative mind to think about how it will look in the end when you're tufting, because you cannot create everything just with the tufting machine. So I think that's it for today. I showed you some of my favorite techniques I use often with the rock carving machine. And I know there are many, many more options how you can use it and what you can achieve with it. So don't forget to tag us on Instagram. And if you like the video, of course, we like a like. And if you want to stay up to date, don't forget to subscribe our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post something new. Have a fantastic day and have fun creating floss. Bye!